On this episode of Forever Spinning, we'll be diving headfirst into one of the most intriguing albums of the 1990s, as we discover the wonders that lie behind Neutral Milk Hotel's classic record, In the Aeroplane Over the Sea. In July of 1996, Neutral Milk Hotel found themselves touring for the first time ever as a full-fledged band after the release of their debut album, On Avery Island. It was during this time that Jeff Mangum, the founder and singer of Neutral Milk Hotel, began writing new songs. And following the success of On Avery Island, which at the time had sold over 5,000 copies, Jeff and company were ready to take their music to the next level. It helped that Neutral Milk Hotel finally had a lineup that would be together through writing, recording, and even touring. Originally, Neutral Milk Hotel was a name that Jeff would hide behind to release his home-recorded cassette tapes back home in Ruston, Louisiana. But now, this was a real band with real goals and aspirations, working towards creating the best art possible. Due to the success of On Avery Island, the band had enough money to move to Athens, Georgia. Most of the writing and demoing took place during this time, as Jeff was hard at work writing the cryptic lyrics that would be the topic of conversation for years to come. Once the band was ready to record, they moved to Denver, Colorado to record at Pet Sound Studios. Jeff's childhood friend, Robert Schneider, would end up producing the entire album from July to September of 1997. For an album that sounds fuzzy and distorted, Schneider had to do a lot of improvising to compensate for the fact that he didn't have enough money for distortion pedals or other expensive recording equipment. He faced this challenge head on, compressing every recorded instrument through a tube mic into a preamp, which was then run through a mixing console and eventually recorded to a cassette tape with the volume maxed out. This is what gives In the Aeroplane Over the Sea such a unique sound and texture, as it feels warm and comforting. After the record was released, Schneider was hailed for his production skills on the album, especially for being able to mix so many strange, unorthodox sounds into a beautiful, cohesive piece. The music is not everything, however. Jeff's lyrics have been the obsession of cult-like fans ever since the album's release. The assumptions made about the lyrics range from people saying that there is a core message to the album, to other people saying that it's utter nonsense and it's too abstract to dissect any real meaning. Some people consider this to be an all-time concept album, while other people say it's not even a concept album at all. Amazingly, Jeff rarely comments or defends his work, as he hid into obscurity after the album's cult-like following reached a boiling point. I'll be sure to dissect some of the lyrics during the singles section. Once the record was properly recorded and mastered, In the Aeroplane Over the Sea came out on February 10th, 1998 on Merge Records. The only proper single released alongside this album was Holland 1945. This single was released well after the album itself, coming out on October 13th, 1998. Holland 1945 is considered to be the true focal point for those studying this album's mythology. It has also contributed to the widely understood theory that In the Aeroplane Over the Sea is actually an album about Anne Frank. It does not say so explicitly in the lyrics of this song, but Jeff has stated that this song was inspired by Anne Frank's diary, even without his acknowledgement. The opening lyrics of "The only girl I ever loved was born with roses in her eyes, but then they buried her alive" all but confirms that Holland 1945 is talking about Anne Frank. It has been said that Jeff has had many vivid dreams about Anne and her family, as he began to feel a very close emotional bond to them. Holland 1945 was almost called Untitled, until Chris Billheimer, who was the leader of art direction on this record, came up with two names, Holland and 1945. Jeff eventually decided to merge the two together, and voila, Holland 1945. Despite there only being one single for this album, I thought I would still touch upon some of the more important tracks off this record, starting with the title track, In the Aeroplane Over the Sea. This was one of the earliest songs written for the album. As the story goes, Jeff was at his home in Athens, Georgia, when suddenly he jumped up, exclaiming that he had an idea for a new song, and he immediately began writing. The lyrics themselves are about a boy coming to terms with the fact that he will eventually die, but finds solace in this new idea. Many of the verses are about enjoying the small things in life, while fully knowing what everybody's end result will eventually be. Lines like, "And one day we will die, and our ashes will fly, from the airplane over the sea," are both incredibly dark and sad while being utterly beautiful and encouraging. This song is meant to feel like gliding in an airplane, with most of this being achieved by using light percussion, saxophone, and a singing song. In the Aeroplane Over the Sea is hailed as one of the greatest songs ever written, with many music publications ranking it extremely high on their greatest songs of all times lists. The last song that I would like to touch on from this legendary project is Ghost. Ghost was first debuted on July 4th, 1996 in San Francisco as the band was touring in support of On Avery Island. Jeff played a solo set at Aquarius Records where he performed early versions of Ghost and O Comely. The lyrics to this track are also commonly associated to Anne Frank, as there are plenty of allusions to her. In verse 1, Jeff sings, "And she was born in a bottle rocket 1929. And I know she will live forever, she won't ever die." Both of these lines can almost be directly traced back to Anne, with the first line being a reference to the year she was born, 1929, and the second being a reference to the Diary of a Young Girl, in which Anne says that she is no longer afraid to die. Ghost is also about, well, a ghost that Jeff claims was living in his house. Jeff has said that he would go to the bathroom and sing with the ghost from time to time, as he says he was occasionally awoken by the sound of someone whistling. This whistling can even be heard at the end of the song itself. Jeff also believed that a ghost lived inside him, which is what the remaining lyrics in Ghost are all about. After the release of In the Airplane Over the Sea, Jeff had somewhat of a mental break. He suffered from nervous breakdowns during the end of Neutral Milk Hotel's tour backing this album. He said that his soul was tired and he couldn't go on like this, so the band dissolved. Jeff rarely appeared in the public after the band's breakup. He mostly kept to himself in order to mend the broken pieces in his life. But it was during this time that the internet got a hold of In the Airplane Over the Sea and began obsessing over it. Conspiracy theories ran wild as a cult of fans tried to dissect every second of this emotionally draining album. Jeff's exit from the stage only fueled the fire for those searching for a deeper meaning within the record. And now, 22 years after its release, this album is all but universally hailed as a classic. While some can casually listen to this and enjoy the unique sounds and textures that this album offers, others continue to dig deeper and deeper. Don't get me wrong, this record is undeniably intriguing, full of hidden treasures buried deep within the lines. I mean, I wouldn't be making this video if it wasn't for all that. But to me, more than anything, this record is a gift. Like, it's not opening up a box that was covered in colorful wrapping paper just to see that there's the new Xbox in it, but instead, this album is an intangible gift. Yes, one that is physical in the sense that you can own the record itself, but also abstract in the fact that there are so many different uses for it. It can be something to simply enjoy. It can be something that turns into an obsession, whether that be because you absolutely love the album or because you're looking for some deep, dark secrets. It can be something to match your mood, mimicking your sadness through lines of death and internal pain. I think in some ways, In the Airplane Over the Sea is able to encapsulate so many feelings that we have deep inside of us but are too afraid to acknowledge. And in that same light, that is why I think that Jeff had such a tough time emotionally after this record's release. I believe this album was so emotionally draining to begin with that after he did realize what it all meant, he couldn't continue to get up on stage and perform this album in an entertaining sense. It's like he got the answer to what is the meaning of life without being fully prepared for its ramifications. But at the end of the day, In the Airplane Over the Sea can be nearly whatever you want it to be, so long as it teaches you something about the confusing world that consumes us all, whether that be modern day, 1998, or 1945. So, whether you've never heard this album before, or if it is a personal favorite of yours, Neutral Milk Hotel's In the Airplane Over the Sea will always be forever spinning. Thanks for watching.